What the hell? Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Tucker Tuesday. How we doing out there today? What's going on, chat? So a drinking game? Oh, you wait till we get to the SOTU, the SOTU, State of the Union. Yeah, SOTU. What's going on, guys? How we doing? Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's having a lovely, lovely day. Pinky Salmon, hello. Oh, man. Oh, man. Do we have a hell of a lot of stuff to get through tonight, and by golly, do I plan on getting through at least most of it. Oh, maybe I'm losing my mind. I don't know, but I feel like there is somehow less time in a day now than there was a couple of months ago. I don't know why that seems to be the case, but oh, jeez. Almost done with the episode. Snoot just missing you. I know. I'll get to it tomorrow. I promise. I pinky promise. I'll do my best. Pinky, get it? I'll do my best to get you my stuff tomorrow. I didn't get back to my house today because I had to go do some errands in the morning. And I go to my mom's house and she's like, "Hey, can you go to the store for us, please? I only have $20. I'm like, "Fuck, Mom, I'm poor." Okay. So I go to the store, get the stuff she needs. I get back to the house. She's like, can you help me do a couple of things around the house? And I'm like, all right. So I get back to the house at like 2. Like, fuck, okay. So I prep for Tucker. I eat dinner, and now I'm here. I didn't get to do shit today. I need to figure out how to get more hours in a day. What do I have to do to make more hours appear in a day? That's all I'm trying to figure out. How's Mama Snoot doing? Good, we hope. She's good. She's a pain in my ass, but she's good. I just need to figure out how to get more hours in a day. One day I went to the store. I went to the store one day. I take up Coke. And I already don't sleep, so that shouldn't be an issue. I go to the gym. I get the boys to school. Sin, if I win the lotto, I'll hooking up Mama Sin, because F my family. Hey, I agree for the most part to accept Mama Sin. Start at 4 a.m. I already start at like 5:30. Pay people to do stuff for you. Well, I'm poor. and, you know, I got my 1099s back for this year, and wow, I made significantly less last year. Fucking that recession hit. I mean, I see it in like prices and shit, but god damn, that hit. Gain a stand? I don't know what that means. Paying people to do stuff for me has really been weighing on me lately. It's really been weighing on me because holy shit, but half the stuff I do, I can't have anybody else do. Like, I can't have somebody... How'd the tires go? I haven't even looked at that late. I haven't even had a chance to think about that. Not only did I not get a chance to get up to the dealership today, and that's not something I want to do over a phone call. Like, that's something I want to do in person. That's a face-to-face conversation. So the tires are just on hold until I either get the 500 back from that shitty auto shop, or I shit out an extra $500, but I'm already short on my bills. Like I had to dip way into my savings account for my bills. Like, it's bad. It's bad. And it's like, anyway, I'm not getting into that. Because, if I start bitching about finance, people are like, you're just dry begging for money. Yes, but that's not the point. 2022 was a real poly word of a year. That's an
We're looking at sea
understatement.
otters. 6 of them here.
That's fucking Obi-Wan
Kenobi.
We're looking at sea otters.
Oh, what is this? Whether you're chatting with friends or bringing on a player two, running a tabletop game, these layouts, oh, that's neat. See, I don't get why poly I don't get why Polly complains about Streamlabs. I think their fucking setup is amazing. Evening Sid, my financial situation is finally resolved. I can provide more and slightly larger donos. Have a round on me. I'm having some pizza and Irish whiskey to celebrate. Ooh, which Irish whiskey you got? Oh, it's an anime reference. I don't know too much about that. Have you considered moving your studio to the hyperbolic time chamber? Ah, yes, the room of spirit and time. I have considered it, but it's a hell of a trek to carry my stuff up to the lookout. So as good as an idea as that is, it is not feasible at this moment as my truck does not have good air mileage. Oh, so I haven't even gotten to script out a speakeasy video for this week. And it's not just that. I have to have the capital to put up to get any materials I need. Now, granted, it's probably like 30 or 40 bucks from the grocery store just to get the stuff I need. It's like, shit, man, I not only do I not have the money to do it, I haven't had time to get to the fucking grocery store. And you know, I got a little short with Mama Sin this morning, and I feel bad about it. Because I'm getting ready to leave, and I helped her do all her stuff, and you know, I did all my stuff for her, and I'm getting ready to walk out, and she's like, hey, can you just bring up a couple of cases of water from the basin? I was like, why do you wait until I'm walking out the door to ask me to do this stuff? You see me here for 3 hours. And she's like, because if I don't tell you right before you leave, you don't do it. I'm like, shit, you're right. They're like, oh man, I'm like, Mom, I have shit to do. I have stuff to do, Mom. She's like, oh, just one more thing. Pay people to move it for you. Remember, you can't ever leave because you only get a single visit. Oh no. Oh. Teeling Small Batch, friend of the family, recommended it a while back, and I finally got the scratch to get a bottle. If you ever get the chance, try the Sexton. Try the Sexton. I haven't had that in a while, but I remember it's pretty good. Yeah, Sin's having a day. Sin is having a day and a half. How are you guys doing? What's going on? Before we get too far into this, the stream, I would like to ask everybody to please gently caress the like button. Please boisterously share it out. Make sure you are over on the Silent Sin, because that's where all the fun is. Mama Snoot just became the uncle from Jackie Chan Adventures, and one more thing. That's pretty much it. Make sure you are over on the Silent Sin, because this is the last Tucker Tuesday that will be on the Sinatra Screams channel. So make sure you're over on the Silent Sin. And if you take a look at the donation key down below, you'll notice that a bunch of question mark donations, which are new and or reordered donations in a lower amount than they were before. That's what the question marks annotate, but the little dashes next to the denominations and donation names are donations that will also not exist by next Tuesday. I am doing a massive overhaul on Streamlabs next week when we are just on the Silent Sin and just building that platform up. We are going to come in with any donations that have, we are going to come in with all new donations, and the ones on the chopping blocks are the ones with the little dashes next to them. A link to the Silent Sin channel. I cannot give you a link to it because I want to keep it as officially off Sinatra Screams as possible. But you just go to the search bar and look up the Silent Sin. Goodbye, Tucker and streaming. Just go over to the Silent Sin. But if you are going to make a donation and you notice any of the stuff down below, please consider doing one of the ones with the dash next to it, because those are the ones on the chopping block if you like that. Or you can unlock a new one, or you can be a legend and join the McKinley Club And in that case, you will get a package sent to you, which contains a whole bunch of goodies that it's really fucking dope. It's really fucking dope. And if you are a member, you should be seeing your package here, hopefully by this weekend. So you can consider joining the McKinley Club, and that's a treat in and of itself. That's a big $500. If we fill up the bar, we'll get a song. Or you can decide to become a god. Drop the comma, get the OG shot glass, the tumbler, the last package, and the new one. And 2 songs on that bad boy, 1 new Pinky Salmon song. So, I mean, a ton of options down below if you decide to support. If not, all I ask you to do is to like and share and at least consider supporting. I sent 2 dono suggestions on Twitter DMs. You got to send them on Twitter or on Discord, man. Twitter DMs are not conducive for that. It's super compressed. So that's my spiel. Dashes are going. Question marks are new. You can save a dash, or you could join the Comic Club or the McKinley Club and get a whole bunch of dope swag. Let's get to the Tuck.
Raged by
We're going to do Tuck and Jimmy Dore for the first one.
the people running our country selling out our country to China, and you should be, but that's a very different thing from wanting to go to war with China, a war that we have no assurance we would win, to put it mildly. But in a memo to his troops, 4-star Air Force General Mike Minahan wrote this, quote, "My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. Xi Jinping secured his 3rd term and set his war council in October 2022. Taiwan's presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a reason. U.S. presidential elections are in 2024 and will offer Xi a distracted America. Xi's team, reason, and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. So what should we take of this? Again, you can be deeply skeptical, in fact, hostile toward China, and still be worried about going to war with China.
I am all of those things. I am skeptical and hostile to China, but I'm also not falling over myself to go to war.
Jimmy Dore is the host of the Jimmy Dore Show. He joins us tonight to assess. Jimmy, what do you should we be paying attention to a memo like this? What do you think it means?
What I think it means is that the United States is trying to...
Stop talking, go to jail.
Love to you. Sorry you're so busy. I appreciate it, Pinky. And I love you.
To provoke
I love you. I love you.
and sable ratter with another nuclear power, right? This is what we were supposed to be afraid of was going to happen with Donald Trump, right? We couldn't have, he's a crazy man who's going to have his finger on the nuclear button. And now we have Demented Joe, who is saber rattling with 2 nuclear powers, and they get the corporate media sponsored by the military industrial complex to get Americans to cheer it on. And why do Americans cheer it on? Because they have no idea what's actually happening with their foreign policy. And what's worse is they have no idea that they have no idea that they don't have any idea what's happening with their foreign policy. We have 400 military bases surrounding China since the Korean War. Do we really think that China is getting ready to invade the United States? Because I tell you, they're not. They make everything we use in the United States. Why? Because the same people who want this war are the same people who took the good jobs that are manufacturing jobs in America, turned them into low-paying, crappy jobs, and then shipped them to China.
See, this is what I mean when I say Jimmy breathes fire. Like, this dude is on point.
And then we get angry at them for the system that we set up. If they're so corrupt, because that's the thing, Americans have no idea how corrupt their government is. They think our government's just regular corrupt, like, oh, Trump gave his son a job or Biden gave his kid a no-show job in the Ukraine war. That's not, the whole thing is corrupt. The $800 billion military budget is...
Oh, and after this, we are going to be over on Twitch covering the State of the Union. So we have a whole party for tonight, guys.
$800 billion of corruption. Why do we have to have 900 military bases around? We're the ones provoking this war, just like we provoked the war in Ukraine. We are now provoking a war with China. And who benefits? I'll tell you right now. Your enemy is not China. Your enemy is not Russia. Your enemy is the military-industrial complex, which has been fleecing this country to the tunes of hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars. How many times are we going to have a defense secretary say, hey, we can't account for $2 trillion in the Pentagon again. Which is what happened twice now in my lifetime.
Yeah, and I'm just so glad that my endless taxes are going to this. Man, woo, Twitch bonus, indeed. Indeed, and getting drunk. I make it, unless somebody hits the comma, and I get to dip into some of my comma juice. Oh man, I got fuck it. We'll do a McKinley drink tonight, not because I want to drink, but I tend to make it a point not to get drunk on weekdays.
So again, people are being the war machine cannot be stopped. Who's running this country? The war machine. It certainly isn't Joe Biden making these decisions. I would like to know who is making the decisions. And I just want to remind everybody, the United States is the world's terrorist. We just set the Middle East on fire in the last 20 years, and now we're doing a proxy war in Ukraine, which we provoked, NATO provoked.
I mean, it's a tough truth, but it's an honest one.
And it was just admitted that we provoked it by the former prime minister of Germany. And now we're trying to saber rattle with China, and they're predicting a war. Again, China's not going to invade us. China's not our enemy. We might have an economic.
We would have a little bit of a heads up if China mobilized to invade the continental U.S. Saying if I get more, the GS. So I'm sorry, saying if I get the GS, I don't know what the GS is.
War. That's what these are. These are economic wars. These are wars for in Ukraine. It's about liquefied natural gas and making sure Germany and Russia never come together, because we fear Russia's natural resources and manpower, and we fear them getting together with Germany with their technology and their capital. And so that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. That's why we're doing the Ukraine war. This is all about hegemony, imperialism, and economics. And if there's a Marine somewhere, it's there because they're about to steal some natural resources from another country. As everybody's screaming about what a bad guy Putin is for invading Ukraine, the United States is currently occupying.
Oh, well, good luck to you, Blacktear.
Occupying a third of Syria. And which third is that? It's the third that has the oil. And how do I know we're there to steal their oil? Because the president of the United States said so.
we're not even back.
Damn, Jimmy Dore's on fire.
Good evening, and
I do genuinely enjoy Jimmy Dore like that. He is one of the few people who I can look at and go, this guy at least knows what he's talking about with what he says. Before we get too far into this, I'm gonna go refill my water bottle. I'm just gonna turn the speakers on so I can hear you across the room. Be good while I am strides away.
welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Have you ever noticed that there's not a single person in the entire overstaffed Biden administration whose job it is to announce good news? Not one. There's the now familiar Office of Attacking the Middle Class. They're usually quite busy. There's the Department of New and Counterproductive Wars. Those people never sleep. And of course, there's the all-powerful Directorate of Hysteria, which makes sure that every living American is terrified of something or other from breakfast till bed. But there is no good news office. That's something the Biden people never considered. So yesterday, the administration seemed a little awkward, maybe even sheepish, when it announced the best news of all, which is that the COVID era has finally passed. For 3 years, the U.S. has lived under a permanent government-designated COVID emergency. At this point, looking backward, no one can agree on what the point of it was. Certainly nobody got any healthier, that's for sure. In any case, it's ending, for good or bad. Technically, the emergency will continue until May. This will allow the Biden administration to shovel a few more cargo planes full of tax dollars to its donors in the so-called healthcare industry. But that's it. Those are the last gasps of the Rona scare. We're done. And that means, above all, that we can finally get to the second and much more satisfying part of the program, where we finally hold the people accountable who did what they just did to us. And first on that list would be Joe Biden. At this point, Biden has the functional IQ of office furniture, but his instinctive viciousness remains intact. So Biden, the second he got into office, wasted no time at all in blaming Americans for a virus that China created, and then in using the pandemic to pit neighbors against one another. It was the cruelest and most divisive thing any president has ever done to his own country. In case you've forgotten what it looked like, here you go.
I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
What is this? That's the new Goblin is what that is. Hold on. What the shit? What is this? Does Biden have falsies? Like, he has to, right? Like, the guy's has to have falsies. Because what the shit is that? He looks like a fucking NPC. He looks like an SCP, is what he looks like. SCP-046. Joseph Biden. SCP is barely at a cognitive level with very little cognitive function. He is tangentially aware of his surroundings only when young children and or women are around. There we go. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Or show a negative test at least once a week. We're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin. The last thing we need is Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated.
Yeah, how did that turn out, huh?
For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm.
Our patience is wearing thin, Americans. If you don't want to take an untested experiment.
Like, the kind of go-to is to call him a Chinese conspirator, but really he's an international conspirator just giving money away to get it laundered back to him. What is a good name for it?
mRNA shot from a company that has bought immunity from Congress against future lawsuits, you are a selfish Neanderthal. Worse, you're a killer. You're literally killing your own neighbors. The only good news is you will soon die yourself because you deserve it. That's what Joe Biden said. The president said that to his own people, and it was, of course, a lie. Leaving aside its potentially terrifying side effects, the shot did not work as advertised. Sorry, it just didn't. It did not prevent people from dying, did not even prevent them from transmitting or getting COVID themselves, and that's why.
So then what's the point?
Vaccinated people still wear masks. Everyone knows this, but Joe Biden has never admitted any of it. Nor has the federal government rehired the thousands of good people, really the best people, the Navy SEALs, the nurses, the EMTs, the firemen, the airline pilots, the people.
You know what? It's kind of a go-to. But let's just go this. Because it's always good.
My dad farts like, well, my dad farts like this.
Ew, he's drinking water instead of booze. Sin is not a real gamer. Confirm. It's not. I don't like to drink on a weekday, unless of course a McKinley or a comma rolls through. But I tend to not drink on a weekday.
877 cash now. 877 cash now. 877 cash now.
877 cash now. I gotta make sure I'm annotating these as we go. I guess I could just do it like this, make life a wee bit easier. Boop, 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 boop. Damn it. Unboop, unboop. Unboop, unboop, unboop. I need dissin. Yeah, well, that's lit. I'll read these. This message is brought to you by Imagicorp. Maximizing your bottom line by streamlining blah 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 by streamlining the workflow through the integrated blockchain processing. Imagicorp, we don't know what we do either. Send us your money. Hey, that's what I do. But I hopefully provide some entertainment. 1550 my dad. My PRRRTS. Then 877 cash now.
People who were fired from their jobs for making what turned out to be a pretty solid medical decision. And by the way, no one's ever explained why it was immoral somehow to treat COVID before patients wound up on respirators. Why? What was so bad about ivermectin and monoclonal antibody therapy? We still don't know.
I would just like to remind everybody that I would just like to remind everybody that ivermectin is still on one of the UN's lists of integral medicines.
The administration still won't tell us where the virus came from, though obviously they know the answer. But now is the time to find out. We need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to get to the bottom of what we just lived through, and let's hope we get one very soon. But in the meantime, this being
Shiru Gospel really wants to see a wormy.
in Washington, the end of COVID, the end of the emergency, poses a much more immediate political problem for the people in charge. The Democratic Party can't govern the country without emergencies. If the public is ever allowed to calm down long enough to think clearly, uncomfortable questions might emerge. Wait a second! If my kid can't get into a good college or work at a big company because he's white, how is this systemic racism thing real? And if it is real, why can't I just change my race like all those people on TV are always changing their sex just by wishing it so? What's the answer?
I mean, if you follow their logic, you could do that. We all know it's a load of horse phooey, but...
Can you imagine if people start asking questions like that? That would be bad. It would be a disaster. So clearly the Democratic Party needs a new emergency, at least until we start sending ground troops to Ukraine and the population becomes...
Fake Gamer Cat said no wormies, but in the next press she'll be like, I need to see The Witcher.
...suitably hysterical again. So because they need an emergency, they found one. And the new emergency turns out to be the old emergency, which is white racism. Now, unfortunately for the Democratic Party, white racism is one commodity, like cedar boards, that's getting harder to find. Very few unarmed black men are killed by white cops these days. Where's George Floyd when you need him?
Where's the media, actually?
So instead, in a pinch, they've settled for an unarmed black man killed by black cops, which they have informed us, nevertheless, despite all appearances, is still the product of white racism. And Barack Obama enthusiastically agrees. This is Barack Obama's lane. He was elected president twice on this kind of stuff, so he immediately jumped into the middle of the Memphis tragedy to remind us that white middle-class Republicans did this. Blood is on their hands. Selma, Dr. King, Rodney King, Trayvon Martin. They're all the fruit of white supremacy. It's true. And his bombing...
Ha ha. Evening Sinatra, I have to disagree on one thing you said. There is no presidency, it's a residency. I fully respect the office of the president. Only wish it was filled at the moment. Just living there doesn't make legitimate. Take care and God bless. That's why it's called F the Fed puppet. Because, I mean, I don't think he's making any real decisions. But fair enough, Crossfire. Thank you very much for the 444. And if you want to help yeet the puppet, and the Streamlabs down below. Like I said, McKinley Club package you can get out tomorrow. Bang. Comma Club stuff is going to be dope, and you get everything. You get all three glassware in one go. Bang. FREE, that spells free. Free for the report of them. Breaking news, Kitty is in my lap sleepy. Because The Witcher isn't gross and eye candy for all, maybe people don't want to watch people get stabbed in the head.
On Twitter, you can learn a lot more about how it's true on his website. Excellent. Okay, so we decided to go there. We went to the Obama Foundation website today, and there we found an entire section on how we have to...
I'm not donating for other people's fetishes, worms, or The Witcher. How do you know the Awoo isn't someone else's fetish?
Continue to defund the police.
Thank you, called.
Yes, people are still saying it. Quote, cities like Los Angeles, Baltimore, and Philadelphia have reduced their budgets for their police departments, the Obama Foundation explained without laughing. These cuts made funding more available for other elements of public safety, like affordable housing. Right, because affordable housing is public safety, unless that affordable housing is in Chicago or Baltimore, in which case you're likely to be killed. But whatever. The point is, take 3 steps back, Barack Obama, the former president, is weighing in directly on America's latest fake hate crime. And you have to wonder why. He's not doing it for himself.
We know why.
Obama is retired at this point. He's living on Martha's Vineyard with all the other rich white people. He's doing it for his wife who's never had a real job and apparently is feeling kind of restless approaching 60. And that's why you may have noticed that 6 years after leaving Washington, Michelle Obama is back in the news. She's got a new book and a media tour and even a federally funded hike.
All right, you know what? Okay.
Hiking trail named for herself in Atlanta. Why has she emerged in this way?
There's still the little one at the $10 mark, Cinna.
Well, there might be a reason. In fact, if you didn't know any better, if you were visiting this country from a foreign land trying to figure out what's going on in the U.S., you might mistake what Michelle Obama is doing right now for the beginnings of a presidential campaign. So first, you have a manufactured white racism panic. That's a clue. But the clincher is menopause. Unlike every other woman over 50 in all human history, Michelle Obama, we're sad to tell you, has menopause. It's not clear where she caught it. Maybe there was an outbreak in Edgartown. But it's bad. At one point, Michelle Obama gained up to 6 pounds. You don't know how much she suffered. let's put it this way, Baton Death March survivors, she laughs at you.
You guys don't understand. You don't understand the trife. That's the word, right? That Michelle Obama has to go through.
You can't fathom her pain. Watch her talk about it on TV.
I am still physically active, and my goal now, instead of having Michelle Obama arms, I just want to keep moving. Just keep.
Okay, fuck, bitch, you're going through the change. You're not dying.
Keep moving. If I can walk, move, I don't have to run, I don't have to beat everyone. So I've had to change the way I see myself in my health space. I never used to weigh myself. I'm not trying to stick to numbers, but when you're in menopause, you have this slow creep.
You have this slow creep. And no, she's not talking about Joe Biden here, who is technically one of the slowest creeps in America. She's talking about her own thighs. Now, why is Michelle Obama telling you about her menopausal thighs on a TV show? Possibly because she's a crazed narcissist who thinks her own thighs are interesting to you. And that's, of course, true. But there may be other reasons. Consider that today's Washington Post expressed deep dissatisfaction with Joe Biden's current heir, Kamala Harris.
Wrong
now,
one,
Harris is a
Attila.
woman who cannot even consistently pronounce her own first name. And she might not be, as the Post suggests, up for the job of leading this country. And we're quoting. Some Democrats are worried about Harris's political prospects, the paper says. They're worried she may not have the, quote, political skills to win a national race.
She got torpedoed by... God damn. Fostonia coming in with a big 110. I'm your Huckleberry. I'm all about girl fucking some shit up. And if Fake Gamer Cat loves it too, so be it. By the way, I really like the bumper music at the beginning of the show. Love you. No homo. Thank you very much. Pickman says, no, I'll have my revenge. Can we get a big thank you to Fostonia for the big 110? Incredibly appreciated, incredibly generous. Thank you so much, Fostonia. Amazing, amazing. I still think that Logan Nine Fingers could take out Geralt, but fuck, man, I wish I could do the Ard. I feel like that'd be so useful. Let's get a big thank you to Fostonia. Thank you.
Whoa, wait a second.
I'm pretty sure that's my second favorite donation.
Pale colonizer. Kamala Harris doesn't have skills? Isn't that racist? Well, as the Post reports, yes, it is. Quote, some party members fear that Americans are simply not willing to elect a woman of color as president, especially given the racism and sexism they see emerging in recent years, because there's more now. So here's the problem for the Democrats.
You know what? Maybe I will tip you 10. Hope this helps some. Thank you so much, Senna. Much appreciated. Back to back, Geralt's amazing.
Current Vice President
Sin, do you hum and dance when you pet your animals as well? Sometimes.
Is totally incompetent and universally loathed by everyone, including her staff and possibly her husband, who literally kissed her with a mask on. We're not judging, but you can see it for yourself. So you don't want her, but you can't just ditch her for a white dude. Sorry, that's not equity. So where do you go from here? Ooh, good question. And it turns out it's a question that Michelle Obama seems to have been thinking about recently. Here she is.
Zach, what the hell is this?
Needs feed and seed, where feed and seed both end in the sound eed, thus rhyming with the name of the owner, Sneed. The sign is a subtle joke. The sign says that the shop was formerly Chuck's.
Well, whatever. I'll watch it later.
Is this fall, considering the matter of whether her elderly old servant, her dear friend, Joe Biden, should grace this country with yet another term as president. Watch.
But it's a tough job, and I think that he's doing the best he can under some tough circumstances.
Do you hope that President Biden will run again in 2024?
You know, I will have to see. It's, you know, the reason I don't speak on that is because I know what it feels like to
She is looking kind of old.
Be on the other side of it. And I think that that's a personal decision. I don't want to be one of the millions of people weighing in on what he should do.
He's doing, pause here, the best he
Send that over on the Twitter or on the Discord, Zach.
can. As to whether he runs again, Michelle Obama is going to have to, much longer pause here, accompanied by wearied sigh. She's going to have to, quote, have to see about Joe Biden. Have to see. The question is, will the rest of us have to see a whole lot more of Michelle Obama in the next 2 years? Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing.
Homelessness is out of control.
God damn it.
In the history
Jesse.
of jobs, has anybody had a more misleading job title than Alejandro Mayorkas? He is the Homeland Security Secretary. He has done nothing to enhance, but instead a lot to destroy our homeland security. He's left the border open, and he lied about it. Millions and millions and millions of foreign nationals, whose identities we can't confirm, have shown up, helped by the drug cartels, and come into our country to stay forever and live at public expense. That's all real. Andy Biggs knows it's real. He represents the state of Arizona in the Congress, and he's very frustrated by this. He joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you
Oh, interesting. And worms? Worms, what? 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 What does that mean? Worms, okay.
You've watched it. It's affected your state and your district, badly hurt both. How do you think the Congress should respond?
Well, Tucker, thanks for having me. And I think that
Thank you,
the appropriate
Pickman.
response is to do what the founders said. You remove somebody from office, a public official from office, who's causing public harm and violating the public trust, and that is impeachment. And I think that is the, quite frankly, the most pressing remedy that we need to avail ourselves of with Alejandro Mayorkas. What he has done is absolutely, in my opinion, it's unconscionable. He's literally attacked the essence of this country by attacking the geographical integrity, and he's changing so much. He's put so many people in danger. We've got terrorists here that would never have been here. We've got criminal gang members.
I mean, that's a fact. They caught what, like a half dozen sex offenders in Colorado?
And we've got well over 1 million people here. We have no idea anything about their background, where they went, because they just got away into the country because of his policies.
I mean, if you can't impeach a Homeland Security Secretary for destroying the Homeland Security and allowing an invasion, no exaggeration, an invasion to occur on his watch, then what can you impeach someone for?
Well, I think that's exactly right. And so I've had people say, but Andy, he didn't commit a real felony. And I said, but high crimes means that you're a public official and that you have violated the public trust and you need to be removed. Look at just the damage he's done. He came in and he basically got rid of every policy that was working. We had the Yuma sector, Tucker. In the last year of Trump, those policies had reduced the encounters to fewer than 9,000 for the entire fiscal year. Last year, that sector alone had over 360,000 encounters. And then you stretch that along the entire southern border and you're pushing 3 million encounters and another 1 million people who got in and got away. And those are the people that are bringing drugs, they're human trafficking.
Holy shit, tier, nice one. Or black tier, I should say.
Sex trafficking. They've put this country at risk. And quite frankly, the first thing that goes when a country is actually devolving is when you lose your geographical integrity. And Secretary Mayorkas, that's his main job. And he has willfully imposed his own dangerous policies on us. It's not negligence. It's not incompetence. It's willful.
Yeah, and it's a felony. He's ignoring the law that Congress passed. He's not elected. He's a bureaucrat. Right. Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona, great to see you tonight. Thank you. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens. We're living in an age
Mayorkas is really fucking
when
up.
the precise opposite is true of almost every claim you hear in public. So it probably shouldn't shock you that the people who care the least about the natural world are self-proclaimed environmentalists. They're happy to wreck it for profit. They make the oil companies look like deep environmentalists. And if you doubt that, take a look at what's happening off the east coast of the United States. So-called green NGOs, supported, of course, by the people they give money to in the Biden administration, are backing the construction of massive offshore wind turbines that appear to be killing large numbers of whales. In just the last 2 months, at least 10 dead whales have washed ashore in New York and New Jersey. And on Monday...
Is this just a face that Biden makes? F for the whale? But why does he do this? What is this face? Why is this happening?
New Jersey, and on Monday it happened again. A 35-foot male humpback whale died and washed up on Lido Beach in Nassau County in Long Island. Bruce Blakeman is the county executive of Nassau. He joins us tonight. Mr. Blakeman, thank you so much for coming on. So this seems like one of those stories that, since liberals want to save the whales, or did when I was a kid, you'd think would be getting an awful lot of attention, but it seems like nobody wants to talk about it. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I became very concerned when 7 whales washed up on the shores of New Jersey, because obviously we're just miles from New Jersey. Right. And then when I found out yesterday that a whale had washed up on our shores here in Lido Beach in Nassau County, obviously I became concerned because I know that there is construction taking place out in the ocean. And I think that when you have so many of these large animals that wash up on shore dead, that we now have to take a pause and investigate why is that happening. We've got to find that out because sea life is an important part of living in Nassau County. We've got whales, we have seals, we have dolphins, and we've got tremendous fishing here. People move here because they want to enjoy the beaches, the wildlife, and the water. So it's a concern, and it bears investigation.
Well, I would say, and it's very odd considering that if you want to move your cows into a new pasture and some rare salamander is found there, the federal government shuts it down. They're very uptight about killing animals, and that's not all bad, by the way. But here,
no, that's actually pretty good, but like you have to kind of weigh it out.
The biggest mammals in the world are dying in an unexplained way, and there's no curiosity. I just think it's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, you know, listen, there are a lot of people that are disingenuous. They can't find a balance. It's like talking about going all electric. That would be a danger to our America, the way that we live. There'll always be fossil fuels, at least in my lifetime, and certainly alternative energy is important as well. And you have to have alternative energy. But the fact of the matter is there's got to be a balance. And basically, there are people who can never strike that balance unless it's in order to their benefit. And
because that's ultimately what it really is about. It's the benefit that these people can make off of whatever disaster is currently happening at the moment. How many times have we said the phrase that that the only solution to all these problems are to vote for Democrats and raise taxes?
In this case, I'm quite surprised that there aren't more environmentalists and certainly people who are involved in protecting sea life and animals speaking out about this and at least asking for an investigation as to whether or not there's any causal relationship between these whales dying and the construction and the sonar that's being used.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of Americans who care deeply about the natural world, about the environment, but the professional environmental groups are prostitutes and shills, obviously.
I mean, and that's pretty undeniable. I don't think we can even try to deny that.
If you're destroying the environment, you're not saving the environment, I would say. Anyway, Bruce Blakeman, I sure appreciate your being willing to talk about this in public. The Nassau County Executive, thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel.
A wise man's life is based around fuck you. The United States of America is based on fuck you. You're a king. You have an army, greatest navy in the history of the world. Fuck you, blow
me. Kiss her where it smells. Take her to New Jersey. I'll show myself. Thank you, Matt Barnes. And fair enough. Fair enough. Just popped in. Will you be covering the cringe State of the Union? Yes, that'll be over on Twitch, so I want to avoid any copyright issues. So that'll be over on the Twitch.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Former British Prime Minister Boris
I love that donation. That's such a good one.
Johnson sashayed into Washington yesterday, trying to sell lawmakers on a new world war. So naturally, as we told you last night, we invited him on this show. Boris Johnson is a famously articulate man. He's the kind of guy who can quote Aeschylus from memory in a dinner toast and still make you laugh. So we figured he was perfect. If there is one person on Earth who might plausibly explain how a war between nuclear-armed Western powers could benefit anyone but China, that man would be Boris Johnson. So we made the offer, and Johnson said he was interested in coming on. But then, a few hours before airtime, his publicist called to say that Boris Johnson wasn't coming. And that meant that Boris Johnson, reputed to be the smartest leader of any English-speaking country in the world, did not want to publicly defend his position on Ukraine. He was afraid to take questions about it. We found that disappointing, not just because we had assumed Johnson was more impressive than that, but mostly because it is a subject that badly needs to be debated, and soon. Millions would die in the war that Boris Johnson is promoting. The public has a right to know, why are we doing this, before it starts? And as you can probably tell, it looks like it's starting very soon. So that was our experience with Boris Johnson yesterday. Given all that, we were shocked, actually shocked, this afternoon to see Johnson show up at a neocon think tank called the Atlantic Council and say this.
I've been amazed and horrified by how many people are frightened of a guy called Tucker Carlson. Has anybody heard of Tucker Carlson? What is it with this
Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson.
guy? All these wonderful.
What is it with Tucker? Are we going to play?
Republicans seem somehow intimidated by his perspective.
All these cowards in Washington are afraid of this show, Boris Johnson said derisively. Yet somehow he never mentioned that he is one of them. Again, we had just invited Johnson on this show hours before he said that. It was remarkable and remarkably dishonest. We knew that Johnson himself was a coward. We watched during COVID as he transitioned into a terrified old woman. But we had no idea he was also a liar. We should have known. There is no popular support in this country or in any country in Europe for what Boris Johnson is now pushing. The overwhelming majority of people understand that a third world war would mean the destruction of the West. They don't want that. Why would they want that? They live here. Only the Chinese government wants that.
I am just not at all surprised that that Boris Johnson is such a little baby.
And yet, despite that total lack of popular support, it looks like as of tonight, we're going to have that war anyway. And that war will be waged, connoisseurs of irony will be delighted to know, in the name of, quote, democracy. We're going to have a war for democracy that nobody voted for or wants. Shouldn't we have a popular referendum on the war for democracy? No. It's almost hilarious, really. But it's sad, too, and you've got to wonder how it happened. A year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we are much farther from a negotiated settlement and much, much closer to a nuclear conflict. How? Well, that happened because of lying. Dishonesty made it possible. Consider the amazing case of Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Graham is...
Lindsey's got to be gay, right? Like, he has to be.
...is the most aggressively liberal Republican in the U.S. Senate. On the two issues that define our moment, immigration and foreign policy, Lindsey Graham is strongly on Joe Biden's side. Lindsey Graham believes that Ukraine's borders are much more important than our own borders. Here he is last month demanding that American taxpayers, who were themselves being invaded even as Lindsey Graham was speaking, that American taxpayers must send M1 Abrams tanks to Zelensky and his wife. Watch.
Look, I don't give a shit about giving anything to Zelensky and his wife. I don't think they need to get anything, honestly. We've given them enough. If they can't win with $100 trillion, they're not fucking going to.
Almost in World War I type battle conditions in the East, it's impossible, in my view, to dislodge the Russians by the Ukrainians unless they have tanks. We also believe that longer-range rockets will help stop the counteroffensive that is building in the East. The goal is to dislodge the Russians from Ukraine by helping the Ukrainian military.
Whose goal? Whose goal?
In that endeavor, give them the weapons they need to beat the Russians on the battlefield.
So there he is standing with fake war hero Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, who may be almost as liberal as Lindsey Graham. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't an impromptu press conference. It was part of a strategy. And not long after that, Joe Biden indeed dutifully sent the tanks. Now, Lindsey Graham is demanding that the Pentagon send F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. Arming the Ukrainian military with F-16s would mean direct American involvement in a war against nuclear-armed Russia. From there, it is a direct and possibly very short line to a nuclear exchange. It is lunacy. True lunacy. But it's also Lindsey Graham's stated position. He's an utterly committed neocon. Neocon politics are what he cares about to the exclusion of everything else. He has no children. He's not worried about the future. But
60-year-old man with no children talks with a lilt.
You knew that, of course. Here's the weird and revealing part, and the reason we're telling you all of this. Lindsey Graham is the most flamboyant neocon in the Senate, but he is also simultaneously a passionate Donald Trump supporter. In fact, Lindsey Graham is Donald Trump's #1 booster in the United States Senate. Well, that's bizarre. Whatever else he may be, Donald Trump is not a neocon. The neocons hate Donald Trump. They run from him as the devil hates holy water. Trump famously ran against the neocons, and then he mocked the neocons, and then he tried to fix the destruction they had wrought on America's foreign policy.
Yet here we have Trump intentionally stepping into every pile of shit that he possibly can by going after people like Ron DeSantis.
He was the first Republican ever to criticize the Iraq War in the debate, remember where? South Carolina. And he won because of it. And then he criticized NATO. No one criticizes NATO. Trump criticized NATO. NATO is Donald Trump's obsession. He's talked about NATO for 10 years. Why are we funding NATO? NATO also happens to be Joe Biden and Lindsey Graham's instrument in the war against Russia in Ukraine. That's the opposite of Trump's position. And by the way, that position has not changed. Just today, Donald Trump released 2 videos on Truth Social, his social media app. One video was called Why the Russia-Ukraine War Never Would Have Happened Under President Trump. And of course, that's true, it wouldn't have. And the other video
would not have.
How to restore peace through strength.
As much as I am not really a fan of Trump these days, it wouldn't have. It just wouldn't have.
So that's Trump's position. Those are from today. Donald Trump represents everything that Lindsey Graham despises. In fact, to the point you'd think Graham would denounce him as a tool of Putin, as he has so often denounced others who disagree with him. You're a tool of Putin. But no, Lindsey Graham is not doing that. He's doing the opposite. Lindsey Graham is literally campaigning with Donald Trump for president. Here was Lindsey Graham at a rally on Saturday.
How many times have you heard, we like Trump policies, but we want somebody new? There are no Trump policies without Donald Trump.
That's just not true.
I was there. We live in a dangerous world right now. The good news for the Republican Party, there are many, many talented people for years to come, but there is only one Donald Trump.
There is only
Trump's policies led to Joe Biden getting up on stage and screaming about vax mandates.
only one Donald Trump. May his name live forever.
Never forget, Trump is a huge proponent of the clout. Yeah, that's the big thing for me, man, is he's still a big shill for the shot.
So Lindsey Graham isn't just a booster, a supporter. He's a fanboy. Mr. Trump, will you sign my T-shirt? And if you felt that way, it'd be fine. When people feel that way, it's okay. We like Donald Trump. But here's the creepy thing. Lindsey Graham is not a Donald Trump fanboy. Lindsey Graham is an enemy of Donald Trump. And we know that not from what he says, ignore what they say, watch what they do. Always. This is the same Lindsey Graham who spent 4 years when Trump was president trying to undermine Donald Trump's biggest priorities on the biggest issues, immigration and foreign policy. At one point, Lindsey Graham said Trump's border wall wasn't real. It was a metaphor for border security. Oh, a metaphorical wall. He didn't want Trump to build an actual wall that would prevent actual people from invading an actual country. He wanted a metaphor. Okay, how'd that work? 7 million people later, not very well. Metaphors.
Weird how we go, 7 million people are over 11 million.
Don't secure your country. And then on foreign policy, Graham became apoplectic when Trump said he wanted to withdraw troops from Syria. He called that decision, quote, a big win for ISIS, as if Trump was on the side of ISIS, as if Trump was supporting snuff videos. Right. So you know who they are inside by the nature of their attacks. Are the attacks fair? Or are they ridiculous slanders on your character? Low people launch low attacks. And then at the height of the COVID pandemic, Lindsey Graham promoted sending billions to Pakistan, not to Baltimore, to Pakistan, because we need to help women open up bank accounts in a country where, quote, life is pretty tough. Oh, like it wasn't pretty tough here. Then
Do we?
And Graham tried to sneak in an expansion of the EB-5 visa program into a pandemic aid bill. Now, what is the EB-5 visa program? Well, that's the program that gives green cards to rich foreigners who promise to invest money here. Half of those visa recipients come from China. So when Americans were losing their jobs thanks to a virus that came from China, possibly on purpose, Lindsey Graham was dutifully serving the interests of the Chinese ruling class. So whatever else you say about Lindsey Graham.
Always lost on nothing else. That's good. A DeSantis is decent. If you buy orange juice, buy Florida Natural.
He is the walking embodiment of neoliberalism. Ignore your own people, your own children, your own drug addicts living on the streets, your own dying middle class in favor of some theoretical act of virtue in a place you know nothing about. I'm a good person because I've helped people I've never met, even as my own people die. That is neoliberalism. That is Lindsey Graham. And yet, and here's where your head starts to spin, this same man is also campaigning on behalf of the America First candidate, Donald Trump. What? Shouldn't Lindsey Graham be campaigning for people he agrees with, like Mike Pompeo or Nikki Haley? You'd think so. But he was at a Trump rally at exactly the moment that Trump is fighting everything that Lindsey Graham is supporting. Literally, just today, Trump condemned Joe Biden for sending those M1 tanks to Ukraine.
Joe Biden's weakness and incompetence has brought us to the brink of nuclear war, and now Biden is doing what he said 10 months ago would lead to World War III. He is sending in American tanks. It's far past the time for all
We have to pay for and to fuel, you know.
parties involved to pursue a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine before this already horrific catastrophe spirals out of control and ends up leading, indeed, to World War III. And this would be a war like no other war, because this would be a nuclear war.
Right. So Biden is sending in American tanks, Trump said. Well, yes, Biden is doing that. And he's doing it because Lindsey Graham and a whole lot of other Republicans.
I'm going to miss this dono and the other one. But the lesson is never put a burden of freedom on draining the swamp on one man because he may disappoint you. This is a team effort, and George Washington would be very disappointed at us right now. And that's a fact. That is a fact and a half. And that's the wrong button. You just saved that one off the chopping block. And click that. Minimize that. 1992, serb, delete dash, bang. Save, boom. There we go. That one's going to stick around. Okay, maybe I didn't explain it well enough. And we might as well do the full show right now. Guys, smash the like button, share it out on your social media. Make sure you are over on the Silent Sin channel. Those ain't real, dude. Always lost on nothing else. To suit him, Joshua White-Wittis, make sure you're over on the Silent Sin channel. Head on over there right now. Furthermore, if you look in the description down below, you'll notice donations with a little dash next to them. Those are the things, if not hit and if not enjoyed, will be on the chopping block. They'll be out of here. Question marks, obviously new donations, and we have a new comma song. We are about halfway to goal, which means a song for that. McKinley Club packages are for anybody who decides to join that. I have a few left. And then the whole comma package spiel, as you all know way too well. The fizz glasses are going to be superb. That I can promise you. And we'll do double songs on a comma. Why not? I'm poor.
In Washington, but most prominently Lindsey Graham gave Biden the cover he needed to do that. So again, for the fifth time, what the hell is this? Why is Lindsey Graham on stage with a man he disagrees with on everything and apparently doesn't even like? Simple. Lindsey Graham believes that Trump may get the Republican nomination.
That like ratio is suffering.
Through flattery. Not through argument or with facts and reason, as you do with adults, but with false praise. These are the politics of the late Ottoman court transplanted to Washington. Tell the ruler what he wants to hear so that you are free to subvert what the ruler wants. There is nothing uglier or more demeaning to all involved. Or by the way, less democratic. There's nothing more sinister than a flatterer. If you have a choice between a man who wants to punch you in the face or a man who's willing to tell you a lie and claim you're great, choose the guy with the cocked fist every time because you are less likely to get hurt. Subscribe to the Fox News.
I mean, that's true too. If you have just constant yes men around you, you're never going to see the truth of what's going on. I'm taking a look at those like ratios, 53 to 43, not bad, but I'm glad to see lower numbers on Sinatra Screams. Get over to the Silent Sin, 160 to 119, not great, but smash that like button, share it out. The whole thing I just said about Streamlabs, all that stuff, the dashes are going to be going away unless they get saved. The McKinley packages are great, and you can get one, but you have to join the McKinley Club.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. You know you're living in a non-democracy when it's dangerous
And Fustonia's calling everybody out, saying, knock me out, a stream boss.
to displease the ne'er-do-well children of the supreme leader. If
Can't give a comma due to California fucking me in taxes. Do you accept feet pictures? I do not, but thank you.
If you were, for example, at a red light in pre-invasion Baghdad and Uday Hussein came screaming up behind you drunk in his Lamborghini, you got the hell out of the way and you did not complain about it. And you didn't complain about it because Uday's dad ran the place and you did not want to make him mad. You might wind up like the members of his personal soccer team who dared to miss penalty kicks. That's what third world countries are like. All citizens are not equal in countries like that. Power derives from proximity to power. And that means the second most powerful people in a country like that are the children of the president. And very often they don't have jobs and are addicted to something. That's the way it works in places like that. And for a long time, that system seemed very foreign to most Americans. They were used to living in a democracy. They could barely even imagine it. But then, during the last presidential campaign, Joe Biden's daughter abandoned her diary somehow in a house she was staying at in Florida after she got out of rehab. And in that diary, Ashley Biden recounted how her father had taken showers with her when she was young, and she attributed her later sexual compulsions to that experience with her father.
That's so weird. So weird.
So by any standard, that seemed like clear evidence of abuse. And yet no law enforcement agency, so far as we know, ever asked Joe Biden about it. Instead, once Joe Biden became president, his FBI raided the home of journalist James O'Keefe and seized the evidence. Ashley Biden's diary was taken by force and has never been seen again. So the message was unmistakable. When Uday Hussein blows by in his Lamborghini, get the hell out of the way, peasant. Princelings have power, you do not. By the way, Hunter Biden's whole life has been a monument to that message. Despite a decades-long drug problem and no record of legitimate achievement of any kind, Hunter Biden has managed to accumulate the highest possible academic credentials. Georgetown and Yale Law. Don't try that at home. As well as what appears to be millions and millions and millions of dollars. How did he do that? You couldn't do it, but then you're not Joe Biden's son, and that's how he did it. He cut business deals with corrupt countries that his father was conducting diplomacy in as vice president of the United States. And then, we know from evidence, that he apparently planned to kick back some of that money to his father as part of the deal, 10% for the big guy. Now, that's completely illegal. And yet neither Hunter Biden nor his father Joe Biden have ever been indicted for doing that. Instead, and here's the best part, the real criminals we learned yesterday are the people who dared to talk about it. Yesterday, Hunter Biden's legal team released a letter demanding that Joe Biden's friends imprison anyone who criticizes Joe Biden's son. So these letters call on the Department of Justice, which Joe Biden controls, and Delaware Attorney General Kathy Jennings from Joe Biden's state to file criminal charges against Republicans who dared to possess and share the contents of his son's now.
Of course, Jacob Rivera, but we're talking about two different things here. One person is acceptable, the other most certainly is not.
famous laptop. And that list would include, among others, John Paul McIsaac, the owner of the Mac repair shop where Hunter Biden abandoned said laptop. According to Hunter Biden's high-paid lawyers, John Paul McIsaac should be in prison for doing this. Quote, Mr. McIsaac chose to work with Donald Trump's personal lawyer to weaponize Mr. Biden's personal computer data against his father, Joseph R. Biden. In other words, John Paul McIsaac didn't want Joe Biden to become president, and apparently that's now a federal crime. But wait a second, back up a second. Does that mean we can now say with certainty that the laptop is real? If we can say that, that means that Adam Schiff, who's now running for Senate in California, had better issue a statement pronto correcting his previous categorical claims about the laptop. Here was Adam Schiff in October of 2020 when he chaired the House Intelligence Committee.
Does it surprise you at all that this information Rudy Giuliani is peddling very well could be connected to some sort of Russian government disinformation campaign?
Well, we know that this whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin. That's been clear for well over a year now that they've been pushing this false narrative about the vice president and his son.
We know this comes from the Kremlin, Adam Schiff said. And of course, Adam Schiff would know since he, unlike you, had access to top secret information. You weren't allowed to see it. He did see it. And on the basis of that knowledge told you it was from the Kremlin. And it's exactly what dozens of former intel officials told you. They saw.
Oh, maybe we should stop listening to former intelligence officials who are stumping for one political candidate.
The evidence, and this was from Russia. So now it looks like they were all lying. According to Hunter Biden's lawyers, quote, Mr. McIsaac unlawfully shared Mr. Biden's property with third parties. His property, he owned it, it was his. Yes, the laptop, according to Hunter Biden's lawyers, belonged to Hunter Biden. It did not come from the Kremlin. That's settled. Except, wait, no, it's not settled. Because today we got yet another statement from Hunter Biden's lawyers, and they seem to revise the first statement. Here's today's statement, and we're quoting. These letters do not confirm McIsaac's or others' versions of a so-called laptop. They address their conduct of seeking, manipulating, and disseminating what they allege to be Mr. Biden's personal data wherever they claim to have gotten it. So in other words, we believe the government should send these people to jail for possessing stolen property that belonged to Hunter Biden, but that so-called property may not actually exist and may not even belong to Hunter Biden. That's their argument. It's a novel legal theory, actually. In fact, it's so novel, it's totally incoherent. It's like prosecuting somebody for stealing your imaginary
No, it's incoherent because it makes no fucking sense.
car. But even if we can agree that the laptop is real and not a deep fake produced by some diabolical Russian AI program, and again, neither Hunter Biden nor his lawyers have conceded that yet, maybe they will tomorrow, but even if we could all agree on that, there is another more fundamental problem, and it's this. Hunter Biden signed an agreement acknowledging that if he left his device at John Paul McIsaac's repair shop in Delaware for more than 90 days, if he didn't pick it up, he would forfeit ownership of it. He wrote that. No one disputes that he did. And then Hunter Biden violated the contract that he signed. And he violated it because he was a crackhead who was having an affair with his sister-in-law, at least 3 of his employees, and countless strippers and hookers, while at the same time trying to execute on illicit business deals with the Chinese. So he just didn't have time to return for his laptops. That makes sense. He was very busy. John Paul McIsaac, meanwhile, being the small business owner, called Hunter Biden again and again and tried to give the laptop back. But Hunter Biden was so busy, he ignored John Paul McIsaac. Watch.
He sort of disappears on you. So he disappears and never comes for that external hard drive that now maintains the data?
So now I'm in possession of his laptop, a backup of his laptop's home folder on an external drive that he provided.
I hate the hat. I hate the hat.
And no sign of Hunter. I think I called him again the following weekend or right before the end of the month. I always call customers at the end of the month to collect on out of delinquent bills. And then I think I called him a couple more times over the next month after that. So just no response.
Kept calling him. He was smoking too much crack with too many hookers. He didn't call me back. That was John Paul McIsaac's explanation. So it's kind of hard to blame John Paul McIsaac for this. He tried his best to return the laptop. And yet they are blaming him. In fact, Hunter Biden is demanding the Delaware Attorney General, Kathy Jennings, put that guy, John Paul McIsaac, in jail for what he did. On what grounds? Hunter Biden is the president's son. If he smokes too much crack to follow the terms of the contract he signed, that's not his problem. It's yours. Now, in a normal country, a normal prosecutor would laugh at an argument like that. But Hunter Biden is betting that Delaware Attorney General Kathy Jennings will take that argument very seriously, and he has reason to believe that she will. Because Kathy Jennings is not just the Attorney General, she is a longtime party hack ideologue who can be counted on to faithfully do the bidding of Democratic leaders and donors. And even better than that, Kathy Jennings is a longtime friend of the Biden family. In fact, she once worked for Hunter Biden's
See you, Pickman. Good night, buddy.
brother, Beau Biden, and she worships his father, Joe. We're not guessing. Here's a Facebook post from the now Attorney General of Delaware, Kathy Jennings, dated April 25th, 2019. We're quoting, "I've known Joe, Jill, and the Biden family for most of my life. Joe is one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever known. Democrats are blessed with many excellent candidates this year, and I am proud of those choices and what they say about our party. I'm choosing Joe because nobody understands more what it means to heal. And right now, that's what it is."
Oh, this is a joke. Oh, I hate these people.
Nope. Stop talking. Go to jail. Nope.
Okay, fine, but I still do. Anyone, not the FBI, says anyone who mentions Biden laptop will be promptly prosecuted. Even though said laptop may or may not exist, stop imagining a fake laptop that allegedly exists. It's insane. And people just eat this up. They just eat it up. Like, how can you willingly just ignore the shit right in front of your stupid fucking face? Oh, it's so goddamn irritating. Why? And we're going to get into this more in a little bit, but like the fact that they just shit out 3 balloons. They're like, oh, well, 3 balloons happened under Trump, so you can't say Biden is weak on this because it happened under Trump too. It's like, no, it never fucking happened. Like, you're just lying right to us and nobody has the balls to say anything. I feel very confident that if you thought you could put some pressure back on Trump and take it off of Biden, you could shit out 3 balloons that never existed. I feel very confident of that.
Well, right now, the Biden family needs something very different, and Kathy Jennings may be willing to provide it. Again, this is the person that Hunter Biden's lawyers are calling on to send John Paul McIsaac to jail, and she very well may send him there. Doesn't seem like a fair fight, really. So here you have John Paul McIsaac, a small business owner who lives in a small, corrupt state controlled by the Biden family. He's the peasant in this scenario. And then you have Hunter Biden is the princeling. So with no obvious means of support, Hunter Biden has been living in a $20,000 a month spread in Malibu and can someone tell us how, afford a team of the most expensive attorneys in the United States of America. How is he doing that?
Because he steals money.
Every year, Washington, D.C. looks forward to this.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. You know your family needs something very different, and Kathy Jennings may be willing to provide it. Again, this is the person that Hunter Biden's lawyers are calling on to send John Paul McIsaac to jail, and she very well may send him there. Doesn't seem like a fair fight, really. So here you have John Paul McIsaac, a small business owner who lives in a small, corrupt state controlled by the Biden family. He's the peasant in this scenario. And then you have Hunter Biden is the princeling. So with no obvious means of support, Hunter Biden has been living in a $20,000 a month spread in Malibu and can someone tell us how, afford a team of the most expensive attorneys in the United States of America. How is he doing that? We don't know. We can say one of these guys has a strong advantage in this battle, and it's not the little guy. So we haven't watched...
Because we never have a strong advantage. The game is rigged against us, and if we fight back, we are, terrible. In every way, shape, and form. Racist, sexist, Islamophobic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ay. You know what else is racist and sexist? That like ratio. It's terrible. Guys, smash a like, share it out. Make sure you're on the silent sin. Hit the slabs. We're about halfway to goal, and we got a little bit of time left till the State of the Union. And if we get the goal, we get a song. Get the McKinley, we get a song. Get the comic, get 2 songs, and you get a box on both.
A ton of cable news recently, but we assumed with mass layoffs underway across the U.S. economy, an egg shortage, crumbling cities, the prospect of a third world war looming on the near horizon, we assumed we knew what the other channels would be covering, because there are an awful lot of threats out there. What we didn't know until we tuned into MSNBC and CNN the other day was that all of those threats go by a single name, and that name is Mr. George Santos. George Santos. Weeks into his new job as a freshman member of Congress, and just months from his previous life of near total anonymity, George Santos has somehow transformed into the single most dangerous and historically significant figure on the global stage today. George Santos is like 9/11 in human form. Nothing will ever be the same now that George Santos is here. You will never forget the moment you first saw George Santos. Where were you when George Santos was elected? It's a story you will tell your grandchildren. Watch.
On Capitol Hill, this is George Santos's reality. It seems almost every day there are new questions about the freshman congressman's past, some stretching back.
The comma boxes are pretty fucking dope, guys. Well, you get if you join now, you get all the good stuff. Not just this one, but all the good stuff. because I had to order some extra stuff. So you get the original stuff and then other stuff. And it's like 2 packages in one plus the one coming out next. It's amazing.
More than a decade.
Can you keep up with all the Santos lies and controversies? He is now out-trumping Trump in terms of flooding the zone with excrement.
Not just saying that he played volleyball, but he had a scholarship, that he slayed teams from Harvard and Yale.
A perfect portrayal of self-loathing.
I love it. I don't know anything about this guy, but I love it.
That he clearly is so disgusted with himself and so disgusted with the life that he's led, a life of lies, a life of fables.
People didn't decide because they thought he was somebody totally different. It was a lie and a fraudulent election. He has to resign.
Not a volleyball.
I'm shocked Adam Kinzinger is now at CNN. Shocked, I tell you.
Champion, and he doesn't appear to be a champion of the people either. The voters did not elect you, Mr. Santos. They elected a version of you invented by your imagination. Sadly, George Santos represents so much that is wrong today. Lies, denial, and the death of shame.
It was a stolen election. It was a stolen election. You heard Adam Kinzinger say it. And CNN filled in the blanks. It's not just that George Santos claimed that he once played volleyball in college. Played volleyball in college. It's worse than that. Indescribably worse. George Santos told other people out loud, and CNN can exclusively confirm this, that he had a volleyball scholarship, perhaps the most coveted credential in collegiate sports. But he didn't. It was all a facade. It was a tissue of lies constructed to deceive the American people. There was no volleyball scholarship. There was not a single dollar of volleyball scholarship. George Santos.
No volleyball scholarship? Well, I never.
Made it all up out of whole cloth, out of thin air. George Santos is an ersatz volleyball player, a fraud, a ghoul. People voted for this man believing he had played collegiate volleyball on a scholarship, and he hadn't. And yet tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this thief of volleyball glory strides the halls of the United States Congress unimpeded by law enforcement. It's like another insurrection. And by the way, we are hearing tonight, we can't confirm this, but we're continuing our investigation in George Santos. There are reports tonight that he did not actually work at Citibank. He did not work at Citibank. No volleyball scholarship, never worked at Citibank. What?
Oh my God, how will we recover?
What percentage of the people who voted for George Santos under false pretenses would have done so had they known he never played volleyball and never worked at Citibank? We can only guess, obviously a very small percentage.
Can you plug your Twitch so we can head over there for State of the Union? Yeah, absolutely. Just give me a moment.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens. Story.
Now we get into the balloon. Oh, I'm so excited to get into the balloon.
Fox News alert and a very strange story. The Pentagon, as you may have heard, is now tracking a very high-altitude Chinese spy balloon over the northern United States. Apparently it's over Montana right now. You're seeing photographs of that balloon on your screen. The Pentagon has decided for some reason not to shoot down the balloon, even though they say it's flying over some, quote, sensitive sites. So there are intercontinental ballistic missile silos in that area. What is this? Joining us now is Jamil Jaffer from the National Security Institute. Jamil, thanks so much for coming on. This, presidents make a lot of complicated decisions. This doesn't seem complicated. There's a Chinese spy balloon. Why not shoot it down? What do you think is happening here?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tucker. You know, what's really interesting about this incident is that the Defense Department has made clear that this isn't the first time that we've seen Chinese spy balloons over U.S. territory in the past. What's interesting about this particular incident is the fact that we've called it out, we've made it public, and that they actually froze the airspace over Billings, Montana, and put planes up thinking about taking the shot. Now, why they didn't take the shot?
Now, moreover from that, why have we done this, called it out, et cetera, but not under Trump? We did all this shit, but not under Trump.
Shot, why they didn't take it down, hard to know, Tucker, but it's worth noting back in 2001, the Chinese forced down an American spy plane on Hainan Island, kidnapped U.S. airmen and airwomen for a number of days, and stole a bunch of surveillance assets off that plane. Now, that was almost 2 decades ago.
So you almost answered my question. Do you think if the American Pentagon floated a spy balloon over Chinese missile bases, that Chairman Xi would say, I'm not really sure how to respond. Maybe we should just let it keep floating?
Yeah, look, I think that's highly unlikely. I mean, you saw Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan just a few months back, and Kevin McCarthy is going to Taiwan shortly, and the Chinese were threatening to shoot down Nancy Pelosi's plane. So, it's clear that the Chinese would take action. It's surprising that we're not.
You want to be as fair as you can.
I mean, we know why he didn't. He had to let Z get all the information he needed flying over the bases and doing all that stuff. That's the only reason that... That's the only reason he didn't do anything. Can we just yeet the puppet?
in situations like this because there's so much we don't know, and you're tempted to leap to the conclusion these people are completely impotent. But could there be a good reason they're not shooting it down?
Well, you know, you could say that they wanted to see where it's going to go, what it's trying to track. Is it looking at our ICBMs? Is it looking at something else? They may be collecting information off of it, too. So there's a possibility there are good reasons for not shooting it down. But it is odd that you would announce it, make it clear that you've seen it, and then not take action.
Well, that's exactly right. It's such a smart observation. I appreciate it. Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube.
If they do shoot down McCarthy's plane, do you think they'll do anything? Probably not, honestly. Biden would let him shoot down anybody's plane.
Good evening and welcome to...
Eat the whole cabinet? Man, that's where I'm at. F the puppets. F the puppets, eat them all. But we're a little bit short on doing it.
Tucker Carlson tonight. You often hear people say you can't have a country without borders. You can't have a country if you don't have borders. But that's also true of airspace, which is itself a kind of border. So maintaining control of the skies over the United States, deciding who comes in and out and on what terms, that's one of the most basic duties of the Pentagon and has been since aviation began. If you were to fly your Cessna in restricted airspace in parts of this country, the U.S. military would scramble jets and they might shoot you down. So it's not a small infraction. Unless, of course, you happen to be the Chinese government and you're operating an enormous white dirigible designed to spy on American nuclear installations. In
We know why it was allowed. We know why.
that case, you could relax. You've got friends at the White House. Absolutely nothing is going to happen to you. Now, that's not an imaginary scenario. We're not guessing. We know it's true because we're seeing it right now. As you've doubtless heard, an enormous spy balloon the size of several school buses has floated over from central China. It's currently, we think, drifting across the continental United States. Yesterday, it passed over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. That's one of only 3 places in this country that houses Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. By this afternoon, the Chinese spy balloon had made it to Kansas City. And there, over the skies of that city, a pilot flying a private plane at 47,000 feet came close to hitting the Chinese spy balloon. Derelict balloon adrift, he said, in a notice to other nearby pilots. But it was not a derelict balloon. It was a balloon being controlled by China.
It was an allowed balloon. I wonder what Biden's getting out of this. Do you think China was like, oh, we bought sun photos. We bought shitty art. We fly balloon, yes?
In other words, here we have a foreign military aircraft over our country, spying on our critical defense installations and posing a threat to civilian aviation. That seems like a big deal. If you want to know how big a deal, consider how would we respond if Putin were doing this? If this were a Russian spy balloon? Well, you'd have the world's shortest news story. Russian spy balloon spotted offshore. Entire U.S. Air Force mobilized. Balloon reduced to vapor in seconds. So no, there would not be a lot of debate about what to do about a Russian spy balloon. We'd kill it instantly, as you would any hostile foreign intrusion. But things turn out to be a little different when it's a Chinese spy balloon. As far as we know, Vladimir Putin has never sent cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son. He probably should have. That would have been a very wise investment in retrospect.
No, hold on, I got to hear that. Oh my God.
But things turn out to be a little different when it's a Chinese spy balloon. As far as we know, Vladimir Putin has never sent cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son.
Oh my, that is hilarious.
He probably should have. That would have been a very wise investment in retrospect. The Chinese government, long thinking as always, did send cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son, and apparently to Joe Biden himself. And that paid off. Watch some robot from the Pentagon tell you that you have no right to know anything about this Chinese spy balloon. You think you're a citizen or something? Here it is.
Position of the balloon classified?
Phil, right now, what we're not going to do is get into a hour-by-hour location of the balloon. Again, we're monitoring it closely.
I mean, we could see it from the ground.
As I mentioned, right now, it's over the center of the continental United States. That's about as specific as I'm going to get.
I understand it might be inconvenient, but does the public not have a right to know if
the public certainly has the ability to look up in the sky and see where the balloon is.
The public has the right to look at the sky. Go stare at the sun. That's what the guy just said. What you didn't hear was a lecture about how the Chinese military is a threat to our democracy and our American way of life.
That's because they don't view it that way. They like the Chinese threat. And because, like Trump just said, gave a bunch of money to Biden's crackhead, or like Tucker just said, gave a bunch of money to Biden's crackhead son. And if you want to give a bunch of money to me, who's not a crackhead son, Streamlabs down below.
It's not like the Chinese invaded Ukraine. No, just our country. So no big deal. Stop asking questions. Joe Biden, of course, took that very same position today. Watch.
Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't. Thank you.
Mr. President, when and how will you remember the balloon? When and how will you remember the balloon, Mr. President?
Notice the calm smiles. Walk this way, Mr. President. They knew they weren't going to answer questions on that. And it raises a much bigger question, which is why? What's going on here? What else do they know but refuse to tell us? Well, today, Pentagon sources conceded that the Biden administration has actually been tracking this Chinese spy balloon for months since it left China. That means they watched it float over the Pacific, they watched it pass over the Aleutian Islands and into American airspace. And at any time, they could have shot it down over the water, by the way, risking no life on the ground. But they didn't do that. Why didn't they do that? No one will say. Instead, the trusty Pentagon robot offered this explanation. This is one of the dumbest explanations ever articulated from a podium in Washington. Here it is.
You said that this is violating our airspace, so...
You're not a crackhead, but are you giving 10% to the big guy? I pay plenty of taxes, over 10%. I'm just super poor and really need somebody to join the McKinley Club.
Why not take it down?
Or the Comma Club, even.
It does not pose a risk to people on the ground as it currently is traversing the continental United States.
Or anything. Yeah, anything works.
And so out of an abundance of caution, cognizant of the potential impact to civilians on the ground from a debris field, right now we're going to continue to monitor and review options.
So the U.S. military is in fact protecting you by letting a Chinese spy balloon hover over our nuclear facilities.
$110 for Grawl is much better spent than $800 billion defense per year, no doubt. And I'm also much more deadly to balloons, I think.
That is, in total, an insultingly ridiculous series of sentences. They make no sense. But the administration's position on the Chinese spy balloon becomes not just ridiculous, but scary when you learn that this is not the first Chinese spy balloon. Other Chinese spy balloons have flown over this country, and the Pentagon didn't shoot them down either. Now, you probably didn't know that.
And we all know why. I mean, everybody has to know why. We just let them go, right? Like, I mean, the answers are all right there.
That because nobody told the public about it. The existence of those Chinese spy balloons was classified. Apparently, it still is classified. Joe Biden's Pentagon briefers didn't say a word about it today, as you just saw. And by the way, it's not just Chinese spy balloons over this country. It's many other countries. Nearly identical Chinese spy balloons have been dispatched by the Chinese military into the airspace of Japan and India and the Philippines, and in at least one case, probably all cases, at least one we know of, over a military installation. So Chinese spy balloons are actually kind of expensive to make, and there's diplomatic risk in deploying them over other people's airspaces. We're seeing that happen now. So you don't do this on a whim. Hey, let's send spy balloons over the United States. You do it for a reason. The question is, what's the reason? We're going to try to get to the bottom of it if we can. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight. So as we said, this Chinese spy balloon...
What the hell is going on with this?
So as we said, this Chinese spy balloon...
Oh my God, play.
The most basic duties of the Pentagon and has been since aviation began. If cash to Joe Biden's crackhead son. And apparently,
okay, yeah, we just
so as we said, this Chinese spy balloon came to the attention of most Americans yesterday when it was spotted flying over the state of Montana, a military base, a base with intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, the Pentagon did not inform the governor of Montana about it until after the balloon was over Montana. So, of course, they would have known because they've been tracking it since it left China, but they didn't tell Greg Gianforte, who's the governor of that state and reputed to be, we can't say we don't live there, one of the best governors in the country. We're happy to have him join us tonight. Governor, thank you for coming on. They knew it was coming over your state. You're the chief executive of your state. Why didn't anyone tell you, do you think?
We know why.
Well, when I got briefed, this slow-moving balloon was hundreds of miles into Montana. It had already flown near the Air Force Base and the ICBM silos. When I finally got informed, it was over our most populous city. It got spotted by a photographer at the airport.
Well, that's bizarre. I mean, that suggests deception. Of course, if you're the federal government, you alert state governments. You're the head of your state government.
If you're the federal government, you are a master of deception. Why aren't you playing?
When something like this happens, do you have any sense what the backstory could be here?
You know, I don't. I just know, Tucker, if it was up to Montanans, this thing would have been taken out of the sky the moment it entered our sovereign airspace. And it clearly had been there for a while. It's not moving that fast.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a 308 does not extend to 60,000 feet. So you really need some kind of missile. Why do you think so? I mean, that's really the question. From your perspective, it's a pretty clear case of we know what to do next. Shoot it down. Why do you think they didn't?
Well, I'm not sure. Initially, in the briefing I got earlier in the week, they were contemplating taking it out of the sky. For whatever reason, they didn't do that. Now, clearly, this went to the president's desk. He was given options. For whatever reason, he chose not to act. And unfortunately, the result of that is that Americans are endangered and our enemies are emboldened.
Amazing. Governor, hate to pull random video off the internet and ask you to respond to it, but this is going around. It appears to be, it's on social media, video of an explosion over your state showing what looks like a smoke trail into the sky. We can't even get.
Notice how this thing just went away? Everyone just stopped talking about it?
As to what this is. Do you have any information about this?
Not at this point. I was notified of it just minutes before we came on the air. We're monitoring the situation. I'm talking to our National Guard to find out if they have additional information. I'm sure I'll be briefed here in the next hour.
Last question. The explanation from, as I know you heard, the administration is we didn't shoot this down over Montana because we feared the wreckage would hurt people on the ground in Montana. But I hear you saying, as the governor of Montana, you would have shot it down. So that's not a concern that would have prevented you from acting.
Well, Tucker, you've been to Montana.
Yeah,
Eastern Montana is probably one of the best places to take it down. We could have contained it. We could have found out what the mission truly was by recovering whatever electronics are on this balloon. Again, if the Americans had flown a spy balloon over China, do you think it'd still be in the air? Of course not. We should have taken action. Unfortunately, we've emboldened our enemy today.
Yeah, something got shot down there, Zach. Something happened.
That's exactly right. And it's such a smart point. Governor, I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel. So all politicians have people who imitate them, who do impressions of them. Kamala Harris is one of the few who...
Okay,
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. On Saturday, the 21st of January, American intel services watched, maybe slack-jawed, as a white helium balloon with an enormous payload swinging beneath it lifted off from central China and began to float east over the North Pacific on the way here to the United States. Within a week, it had arrived. On January 28th, the balloon entered U.S. airspace over Alaska. From there, it traveled over the Northwest Territories of Canada, and then it dropped back into the United States over Idaho. By last Wednesday, February 1st, it was spotted...
That's very true, Ham and Beans. I was just thinking that.
...by civilians in the skies over southern Montana. A man staring out of the window of an office building in Billings saw what he thought was a UFO. It was too small to be a moon, he said, and so he began to take pictures, which soon appeared on social media. And then almost immediately, the airspace over Billings, over the entire town, was shut down. Commercial flights were diverted. F-22 Raptors arrived from a nearby Air Force base, along with refueling tankers and an AWACS surveillance plane. It was a big story. So it was at...
I feel like you'd probably do well just to capture it, maybe? Like, just get one of those big, like, tank-dropping planes and just pick it up?
At this point, when the existence of an unauthorized Chinese military aircraft over the continental United States became impossible to hide or deny, at that point, officials around Joe Biden finally decided to tell him about it. Now, we don't know Joe Biden's reaction to this news, but we do know his response. Biden did nothing. He did not order the balloon shot down. He did not call for sanctions or punishment of any kind against the Chinese government that sent it. It was not until this weekend, when the aircraft had traversed the entire United States, including at least one classified nuclear weapons installation, that an Air Force jet finally pierced it with a Sidewinder missile off the coast of South Carolina. Debris was still fluttering toward the ocean when the administration began telling lies, many of them, about what had happened. That balloon posed no threat to American national security, the Biden administration claimed. Why? Because the balloon never transmitted data back to China. Now, how could officials know that? They never...
Officials are liars. That's how they know.
...explained. Nor did they say why the Chinese military would send one of its aircraft all the way to the U.S. without a satellite uplink. Apparently, the Chinese just forgot. They're not very good at technology. It was a nonsensical claim. But as far as we know, not a single reporter in Washington pressed the administration to explain that claim. And that's not really surprising. Reporters in Washington no longer dig. They transcribe. And what they transcribe next is almost enough to make you cynical about the role of the press in a free society. It turns out, and we learned this from unnamed officials on background, that allowing Chinese military aircraft to surveil your country, including your missile silos, is not the big deal the rest of us thought it was. In fact, it's routine. It happens all the time. Trump did it too.
That never happened. I don't care if Tucker's about to tell me it did. It never happened. Bullshit. Didn't happen. X'd out. No way. A
bit of it, actually. At least 3 Chinese spy balloons flew over this country while Donald Trump was president, and despite the anti-China rhetoric, he just let them pass. You didn't know that. Now you do, so settle down. This is normal. In other words, everything Donald Trump did while president is bad, except this, letting Chinese spy balloons fly over the country. That's very good, and we're taking a lesson from him. So virtually every news organization in this country repeated that claim, including some who should know better. And of course, as soon as credulous reporters wrote their dishonest stories, the Democratic Party and the television stations it controls repeated those stories as fact, which was the whole point. Watch.
They are saying we should have shot down the balloon the minute we saw it.
Shut up, old lady glasses.
In answering these GOP criticisms, they are premature and they are political.
This is why
See, so that's what it comes down to. National sovereignty, national security is political and GOP terms.
We voted for Joe Biden because imagine if this had happened under Donald Trump. The way in which the balloon was taken down allows us to retrieve the parts of the balloons to see what was actually in there.
I'm just glad that there was no damage or threat to U.S. aviation operations.
I got a good one. Hold on. What are we at? 213. Bang.
That this operation took place was done in a very effective, excellent way.
Some of the statements from the Republicans.
Oh, dude, all these same people would be blasting Trump if there was a balloon. And now they're like, well, this is why we elected Joe Biden, because there was a balloon. Which one is it, stupid?
Especially in the Senate, have just been asinine, and these jackasses going out again. I'll get my shotgun. I'm going to shoot down the balloon. Seriously, they make clowns of themselves.
Okay, all right.
So the balloon shut down the airspace over Billings, Montana, including the airport. And as it moved east, commercial pilots said they were afraid of it. They were afraid of hitting it. So it's funny to see the transportation secretary, who's in charge of all of this, tell us it posed no threat to transportation. But the best is the dismissal of anyone who has concerns. It's those Republicans again with their moonshine and their shotguns and their extra chromosomes, thinking it's okay to shoot down Chinese spy balloons. When every sophisticated person knows, Donald Trump himself knew the best way to handle Chinese spy balloons, let them pass. Again, just like Trump did. Trump, he's good all of a sudden.
That never happened.
So the question is, did Donald Trump let Chinese military aircraft float over the United States unmolested while he was president? Well, someone asked him. He says he didn't. In fact, in an interview yesterday, Trump said he had no idea there were any Chinese spy balloons over the United States.
Because there weren't.
When he was president. And he seemed to mean it. But it wasn't just Trump. Trump's former national security advisor said the same thing. He said he'd never heard anything about Chinese spy balloons over the country. And you would think that he would have heard. Then the general in charge of NORAD, Glenn Van Herk, had the very same reaction. Quote, "It's my responsibility to detect threats to North America. I will tell you that we did not detect those threats." So somehow NORAD, the most sophisticated, supposedly, monitoring system in the world, missed those Chinese spy balloons too, 3 of them. And by the way, so did the director of national intelligence, the man whose job it is to know America's secrets. He said he'd never heard of Chinese spy balloons over the country during the Trump administration.
So this is just a made-up theory from Mark Milley and the mainstream media. That's all it is.
Here's former DNI John Radcliffe.
Do you remember during the Trump administration when photographers on the ground and commercial airline pilots were talking about a spy balloon over the United States that people could look up and see even with the naked eye, and that a media that hated Donald Trump wasn't reporting? I don't remember that either because it didn't happen.
It didn't happen, said the former director of national intelligence. You can see why he thinks that. So again, according to media accounts,
it's not that he thinks that. He knows that it didn't happen.
At least one of these 3 Trump-era Chinese spy balloons floated all the way to Texas in the center of the country. And yet inside the U.S. government at the very highest levels, no one seemed to know that it happened. Well, how could that have occurred, really? Well, the Biden administration had an answer. Speaking on background to its shills in the media, unnamed officials explained that these Chinese spy flights were actually never reported to President Trump or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or even to the Secretary of Defense. Why weren't they reported? Because they weren't important enough. They were, quote, relatively minor territorial incursions.
Yeah, it just didn't happen.
Okay, so a Chinese military aircraft hovering over Texas, more than 1,000 miles from the Pacific Ocean, is a minor territorial incursion. That's what they said. It's pure absurdity. But once again, no reporter in Washington pushed back. They just repeated the lie. And then without warning, the White House changed its talking point, undermining the first lie. Actually, they explained today, nobody knew that Chinese spy balloons were floating over America during the Trump administration. We didn't know. We just found out pretty recently. Watch the smarter but more dishonest White House spokesman spin that tale.
I can tell you that we discovered these flights after we came into office. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how we did the forensics. I think you can understand that we're going to be careful about that.
They're not going to get into the specifics of the forensics. Oh, the forensics. But the one thing they were really shocked by when they took control of the U.S. government was how soft on China Trump was. They had no idea. He was letting these Chinese spy flights go over. They were shocked as anyone would be.
It just didn't happen.
That's what they're saying. Now, of course, once again, they can't say more because it's classified. Wish we could. Sorry. So what is the real story here? Honestly, we don't know.
overclassification of non-necessary things?
The Pentagon ignored our many questions today. Of course they did, because we're not going to transcribe them. So once again, the people who owe you the truth are lying to you. So all tonight we know with certainty is that the Chinese military just flew an aircraft that reportedly contained explosives over the entire length of the United States and got away with it. That seems like a bad precedent.
It is a bad precedent, but it's not surprising. Never mind. I was going to say, does Biden have to release his tax returns? But we already know that he doesn't claim shit on his taxes. Like, I don't know, Hunter paying him $50,000 a month for rent.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch. Chris Rufo tirelessly is on this. He broke the story. He's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute. He joins us tonight. Chris, thanks so much for coming on. So I just have to ask you once again, how is this, which is so obviously illegal under federal and state laws, all 50 states, how is this allowed?
Well, it shouldn't be, but it's allowed because these are people who have power. They've expanded in the universities with these so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and no one is challenging them from within the institution. And so that's why I'm doing this investigative series.
Woman, check your text messages. I am in awe right now. Oh my God. There's not a single thing.
I don't want to be strong like men who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
So commercial pilots were afraid of a balloon that was at a ceiling 30,000 feet above where they fly. Bullshit. No, you heard Pete Buttigieg say that there was no threat at all to commercial flights.
Exposing it, we're going to put pressure on these folks because what they're doing is quite simple. They're dividing Americans, or in this case, students at Florida State, along what they call a matrix of oppression. They're designating some groups oppressors, other groups oppressed, and they're creating special benefits and special punishments based on your identity. It's wrong. We have them scrambling, and the more we expose it, the more we put pressure on them, the more that we could stamp out this racialist ideology that is capturing all of our institutions.
Well, and it's directly opposed to the America that normal people want to live in, of all colors, by the way. You're not prepared for this. I'm just throwing this at you. I just read today that you've been appointed to the board of a college by Governor DeSantis in Florida. And in a minute 30, can you sum up it's a very interesting story. Can you sum up what you're doing and what that is?
Yeah, I was appointed.
But they want to know every $600 transaction you make and want to know about your tips in a gig job. Well, actually, it's anything more than $10 that you make.
Along with 6 other trustees to take over the new College of Florida. It's the smallest public university in the system. On our first board meeting, we fired the president. We let go of the general counsel. We switched the board chair. And we're going to implement top to bottom reforms at this university. We're going to be bringing a classical liberal arts education and demonstrating it's time for conservatives to get tough. It's time for when we win elections to actually start changing institutions. And we're not just simply going to be the caretakers of left-wing ideology. We're taking action. Governor Ron DeSantis is leading the way, and I'm proud to be part of this movement.
So you're not waiting around for a report from the current administration at this college?
No, we're acting very quickly, and I think you're going to see dramatic changes right from the outset. And look, we're following the governor's lead. This is a guy who has a bold vision, takes courageous action, and really the thing that I hope to demonstrate in this experiment, taking over this college, is political courage, because that's what we need as conservatives. It's time to stop just doing white papers, talking to each other. It's time to take action.
You know,
and Trump took that to heart by calling DeSantis a groomer on what's that shitty social media he has, Truth Sleuth or whatever, calling DeSantis a groomer because he was in college hanging out with college girls. God, Trump is such a joke.
John Durham's going to do a report in the next 10 years, so just hold tight. Chris Rufo, great to see you. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world. And so the point of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as you often heard, is to wind up with a leadership class that, quote, looks like America. Now, we think you should hire on the basis of merit, but that's kind of an appealing idea. The people who run the country should look like the country. That's not what it's about at all, because no administration has ever looked less like America, just by the numbers, than the Biden administration. It's not about making the administration look like America. It's about discriminating against certain classes of people who don't vote for them, period. And now it's provable. Jeremy Carl at the Claremont Institute just ran the numbers, and this is in the
Truth Social, yeah.
Judiciary. He found that out of 97 federal judges confirmed under Joe Biden, total number of white men, 5. 22 are black women. So this is race-based hiring. It's illegal. but it's also not about looking like America. It's about punishing people. And it's also, incidentally, or maybe not incidentally, producing nominees for federal judgeships who know nothing about the Constitution, like this person.
Judge on the far end. Tell me what Article 5 of the Constitution does.
Article 5 is not coming to mind at the moment.
Okay. How about Article 2?
Neither is Article 2.
Huh. Quality.
She doesn't know what's in the Constitution, but she's going to be a federal judge whose job it is to interpret the law against the Constitution. Okay. So degrading. Horace Cooper is the co-chairman of Project 21. He's also a lawyer who knows what's in the Constitution. Horace, thanks so much for coming on. By the way, I'm not a lawyer, I don't even have a successful background in academia, and I knew what those were. So, like, that's pretty bad, right? Why is this not on the front page of the New York Times?
Well, it should have been, Tucker. You know, I actually taught an Article 1 course all about the legislative process at George Mason University. And it's important that people understand what the options, what the authorities, what the powers that our founders granted our Congress, our federal legislature. And we had an entire course focused on that. But George Mason, like other good schools, wants quality graduates. We want talented graduates, and we're interested in seeing to it that the people who leave with a degree are masters of the topic. What we're seeing from the Biden administration, and which is what we're seeing generally from the progressive movement, is this idea that
Miss Sin got the kids food today. She got them Dairy Queen, and I always just get the chicken strip basket from there because that's the only fucking thing they have that even tastes good. And I just opened it up right now, and I just couldn't see the chicken strips. I was like, what the fuck? All I see is the bread and the fries. The chicken strips are under, and I get the 5 strip set because this is my din-din. Every single chicken strip in this thing is the size of my thumb. Meanwhile, the prices are like $2 more expensive than it was a year ago. But every single chicken strip in here is the size of my thumb. Oh, man.
we just need to reshape the judiciary in a way under color. I use that term in a duplicative way. By pretending that we're making the courts look more like America, but the truth of the matter is...
But you're not. That's not making it look like America at all.
We're finding people, they aren't talented, they aren't highly skilled, but they know progressive vision just like the back of their hand. Right, well, that's the ultimate goal of what's happening here. Not excellence. And America suffers, corporations suffers, defendants suffer.
Well, and it's just so unbelievably degrading, I think, for the whole country. It's the opposite of excellence. And I appreciate your saying so. Horst, great to see you. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we set up this independent judiciary as a way for every American, instead of self-help, which is the nasty way of saying, I'm not going to rely on the legal or the justice system.
They don't teach the Constitution in schools anymore because they teach that the Constitution itself is racist and sexist.
We set up, our founders set up this independent judiciary so that we can get people to voluntarily agree to bring their disputes there. I don't want the cardiologist to be chosen by his color. I don't want the pilot to be chosen by his race. And I don't want the judiciary to be chosen that way. We need excellence. And this administration doesn't want that.
Amen. Great to see you tonight. Thank you, Horst.
Thank you.
All right, that's the last tuck from this week, but we have a couple from last week we didn't get to. Uh-oh. Okay.
What we saw in the body cam footage is both horrifying, seeing poor Paul Pelosi in his 80s get hit with a hammer. It's just absolutely awful. But it's also weird, standing there with a drink. What was that? We can't even speculate.
Oh, this was very weird.
As to what that was. And then the 911 call reveals above all that the 911 operator should be fired immediately. Has there ever been a dumber 911 operator? Probably not. We can't have dumb 911 operators. It really matters. But above all, and we hate to defend NBC News, but we just got to be honest, the body cam footage completely vindicates reporting from NBC's Miguel Almaguer back in November. Here's what he reported.
sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high-priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell...
Can we just admit that they got caught having gay sex?
Responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived.
So that's kind of amazing. I mean, the guy was just doing his job. He clearly talked to someone who saw the body cam footage. Now we can see the body cam footage, and we know he was basically right. That's what it showed. So news organizations don't typically punish reporters for getting the story right, but NBC punished that guy. They
Well, that's the point, is he got it right, so they had to punish him. Guys, we're getting ready to move over to Twitch, and we are almost halfway to goal.
suspended him. Then they deleted that report from their website. We asked NBC today, why would they do that? But they did not respond. Of course, we didn't know the answer, which is that body cam footage, whatever else it proves, and once again, we're not exactly sure what it proves, it definitely puts a crimp in their preferred story, which was that the Pelosi household was invaded by QAnon activists or something, or this was some right-wing militia attack on the Speaker of the House's husband. That's not what it shows. And that NBC reporter was honest enough just to kind of describe what it does show, and for his efforts.
So why was this labeled as offensive or uncomfortable? That's a good question.
Telling the truth, he was suspended. Shame on NBC News. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel. Good evening and welcome to Tucker.
Very curious.
Carlson tonight. Last spring in March at a press conference in Brussels, Joe Biden explained that the sanctions he was imposing against Russia, while morally necessary, were also going to cause food shortages around the world, including here in the United States. It's going to be real, he said. Now, Biden said this in a very odd way. There was no hint or panic, emotions you'd expect from a leader predicting the deaths of human beings in starvation.
Oh, excuse me, shit, I'm sorry.
Nonchalant casualness. Biden could have been describing the weather or a trip to the dry cleaners. It's going to be real. Then, Biden continued, recounting a conversation he'd had with European allies. He told us all about it. When he met with the group, Biden said, they spoke about, quote, how we could increase and disseminate more rapidly food shortages. That's what Joe Biden said, verbatim. It's on tape. So here you have the President of the United States pledging to increase food shortages at a press conference. Now, that seemed like a newsworthy event, but not a single news organization in this country seemed to notice it happened, nor did the White House correct it. But others were watching, so within days, that clip wound up on social media, and Facebook flagged it immediately as, quote, false news. Now, strictly speaking, that's untrue.
There was no falsities.
About the video. It was entirely real. No one can test that. But apparently, Facebook users were supposed to understand that Joe Biden is senile, and therefore he's not accountable for his own words. Taking Joe Biden literally qualifies as, quote, misinformation. Now, we'll leave that whole episode for you to assess. We can't know what Joe Biden was thinking, if anything, when he uttered those words in Brussels. We can only tell you what happened afterward. Strange disasters began to beset food processors all over the United States. In April, the next month, the headquarters of one of this country's largest organic food distributors was destroyed in a fire, cause unknown.
And how many fires like this have we had with no cause known?
The next month, in a single week actually, 2 separate private plane crashes took out 2 separate food processing centers. One plane hit a General Mills plant in Georgia, the other plane hit a food plant in Idaho. By the way, back in February, a boiler explosion obliterated a potato processing plant in Oregon, and so on. So even people who aren't given to connecting the dots, who don't think of themselves as conspiracy nuts, began to wonder, is there something here? But no one could tell. The Biden administration had no answers and no way to get to the answers because they had no data. And that's interesting because the Biden administration tracks a lot.
Probably had no want to give the answers because we all know this is just a cheap and lazy way to get food processing to China.
Things, the things that it cares about, the race and ethnicity and sex life, for example, of every person in America. Do we have enough trans-Pacific Islanders playing woodwinds in major symphonies? How about gay Southeast Asians in long-haul trucking? These are the questions that concern the bean counters in the Biden administration. And yet at the same time, that same administration keeps no real records.
Shit. We got to get ready to we have to get ready for the State of the Union. Guys, head on over to Twitch. It's State of the Union time. I'm going to throw that link in the chat. They're getting going, so we got to get going too. We'll finish this up next week. Bang. 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 Head on over to Twitch. I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. We're going to be playing bingo.